Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 El Paso County Citizen College. Thank you guys so much for dedicating your evening, at least this evening, and for some of you, many evenings this week, to learning a lot more about what it is that El Paso County does and how we serve our community. So, as a quick question, I'm curious, how many people have been graduated from a citizen college in the past? Got one. Ooh, I like it. All right. That means there's a lot of new people here, which is fantastic. That was our goal this year, is to get a lot of new people in and to learn all about the county. So may I ask, what was something that stuck out to you about the previous experience?
Well, I took the class with the sheriff's department, and we just learned all the ins and outs of the sheriff's office and how that runs, and how we also got a tour of the jail, and that was a lot of fun and everything. So the whole experience was fun.
Thank you very much. All right, like the Sheriff's Academy, we are also going to be touring the jail, as well as the coroner's office, for those of you who have a slightly sicker sense of humor on things, but it actually is one of our most popular tours of this college. I have done it several times, and it is really amazing, the work that they do there. And for the fact that a lot of people don't realize is that our county coroner actually supports almost half of all the counties across the state because of the talent that we have in our particular coroner's office. So that's pretty fantastic as well. All right, a couple things before we get started, just so you guys know, with the bathrooms. If you need to use the restroom, you exit the auditorium here and then walk past the security desk, and there are doors on your left that are just past the main entrance, and that's where the restrooms are. So anything else? Anything else I need to mention? Yeah, Paul already mentioned that. Okay. So, Citizen College, again, what's the purpose of putting on Citizen College? So, our county is really geared toward service-focused, citizen-focused, and with transparency and really wanting to make sure that the citizens are heard and that we are engaged with our citizens to make this partnership as beneficial for everyone as we can. And so this college is geared toward trying to lay out some of that stuff so that you can see this is exactly how our county works. Now, like I mentioned before, yes, we're going to do the sheriff's office. We're going to do the coroner's office. We'll also do emergency services. We will do the court system. We'll do the DA's office. We're going to do parks. And so we're going to cover all the different divisions of the county. Tonight, what we're focused on is, in some ways, county administration, but it's going to be all about county commissioners. Who are they? What do they do? What about the county budget? How is that determined? How are decisions made as we grapple with more needs than we have money? And that's a universal challenge. Like every county in the United States and really in the world deals with that same problem. So how do we engage with that here in El Paso County? We will also be looking at land use. And am I missing anything else? I think that's it for tonight. Okay, so this is just going to be, oh yeah, another big part is, well, so what is it that the state does? And what does the county do? And what does the city do? And where are those lines drawn? How are we actually articulating who's responsible for what? So that's another part of just laying out, this is who we are as a county, this is what we do. And this is how you can engage with those services. So I would love if I've got any other COG members. So I see Sarah, would you mind coming down real quick? And Jim, and is Lance and the others, are they still outside helping? Aha, here we go. Yes, please. So I wanted to briefly introduce to you guys the committee that really put this together. So we are the El Paso County Citizen Outreach Group. So we work with the county commissioners and helping with a lot of the communication that happens bidirectionally. And so these are all members of the COG. We've got a couple of others that are coming down. And so I just wanted them to briefly introduce themselves, and I actually failed to mention my own name to get off. So my name is Rubel Henderson, and I am the chair this year for the Citizen Outreach Group. And I have been on the COG for the last 3 years, and I have learned a ton about what our county does. I thought I knew what our county did before, but I have learned way more with getting involved with this board. But this is always a highlight, putting on this event. So, Jim?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jim Godfrey. I'm the vice chair. I've been on the COG for about 5 years now, former chair as well. And we hope you enjoy this. As Rubel has said, the important thing here is that you get an overview of what the county does for you as citizens of the county. And so we hope you enjoy this. Each session is informative, and we encourage you to please use those survey forms that we have that gives us feedback on how to improve future sessions. So thank you all for being here. Sarah?
Good evening, Sarah Britton Jack. I can't remember how many years I've been on the COG, but this is my 3rd year participating in Citizen College. And this is a remarkable group of people who are working with a remarkable group of people, which is your county and the staff and our elected officials. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, let us know.
Good evening, I'm Lance Cook. And I had the opportunity to participate in Citizen College last year and really enjoyed the program. And I thought, well, if I really enjoyed the program, maybe I'll get involved a little bit more. So decided to become part of the board. So had the opportunity to do that. So really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here this evening. And I think we're looking forward to a great week with you all.
Hello, my name is Amber Campbell, and I hate to echo exactly what Lance just said. I'm new to the board, but I took the course last year, and I really enjoyed it. So when I saw an opportunity to volunteer my time and help organize this event, I took it. So I think you guys will really enjoy it.
Good evening. My name is Candy Boyer, and I'm a baby member of this board. I just came on in July. So this is the first time I'm coming through this, and I am excited to learn everything. And so I hope that you all learn lots of things and find out what's available in this wonderful place that we call El Paso County and call home.
All right. Thank you so much. So let me, thank you, COG members. Appreciate it. Okay, so for our first speaker of the evening, we have Commissioner Carrie Geithner. So Commissioner Geithner was sworn in as the District 2 Commissioner in 2021 and is beginning her second series of 4 years, beginning this year, earlier this year. So Carrie has, my apologies, Commissioner Geithner, believes in collective responsibility to build our community and fulfill the needs of one another. With a background in communications and outreach, she is building stronger relationships within the community to build trust and local government. Thank you, Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to be here and learn more about the county. It was so interesting to hear where everybody is from and what brought them out this evening. So thank you. I also want to thank all of the COG members who have spent a lot of time to put this together for you, and the staff as well who have worked on putting that together. And we're going to see if I know how to use this. Maybe. Okay, and I don't know. There we go. There I am. Okay, so the first thing I'll say is I'm really uncomfortable with my picture being everywhere around the county. I never really intended to run for office, and I'm a bit of an introvert, so I really love it when we have my picture up here. But the reason that I decided to run for office is not because I love my picture being everywhere, but because, like many of you, I love El Paso County. I have 2 boys that I'm raising here, and my husband and I moved to the area when he landed at Fort Carson. We quickly decided that we wanted to stay here forever. And so he left active duty, still continues to serve in the reserves today. But this is a place that we wanted to pour into. I live in the unincorporated portion of the county. I used to be able to say I'm the only commissioner that lives in the unincorporated portion of the county, but we have a new commissioner who also lives in the unincorporated portion. And that's really exciting because a lot of times we can feel like we're left out. We're not part of the big city. And so I really wanted to represent those unincorporated areas. But I also wanted to make sure that our community remained a place where opportunity was possible for my kids. It's very important to me. I look around and I think, what's going to be there for them? And that continues to be something that guides a lot of what I do here at the county. And somebody's going to have to tell me when my time is up. You guys flag me down or something. Okay, am I supposed to stay on this slide? Or do you want me to go through? Okay. Okay, so there are 64 counties in the state of Colorado. El Paso County is the most populous. We surpassed Denver just a couple years ago. So we are now the largest by population. This is all of your county commissioners. If you don't know your county commissioners by face, as I said, our pictures are up here, so you always get the opportunity so that you can see who they are, but let's try this. How many of you know that you live in District 1 and Holly Williams is your commissioner? Okay, we have a couple. How about how many of you are in District 2? That's my district. Yeah. Okay. 3, Commissioner Weissong. Quite a few. 4, I do know their names. I don't know why I keep looking up there. Corey Applegate. Wow, lots of people from 4. And then 5, kind of that central area, Lauren Nelson, who is our newest commissioner. Great. Great. So she lives in the unincorporated, right in the middle of the little pocket up there. So kind of neat, a neat addition to the board. Okay, so how many of you don't know where you live yet? You're here and you're going to figure it out. That's great. A lot of people don't know which commissioner district that they live in. That's not actually very unusual. Okay. So I told you a little bit about why I decided to run, and I kind of mentioned I live in the unincorporated area, so a lot of the things that we do cover everyone inside of the city. And those are things like our jail services. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Those are things like our jail services, DHS, all of those things. We serve everybody across El Paso County, whether you live in Colorado Springs, whether you live in one of the other small municipalities, we serve all of those. And then there's some things that we just do in the unincorporated area, like roads. So roads in particular were very important to me because those are roads that I drove on, and I wanted to make sure that we were improving the quality of our roads, which we have done over the last several years. So there are things that we do like roads, as I said, and I could get super nerdy on this. So I highly recommend that if you have not, if you don't know that we're in the middle of budget process right now in the county, we are in the middle of that. There's the opportunity. We've just had our first budget hearing, so there's an opportunity to learn more about that. But it's one of the most important things that we do because it does help us figure out how we're going to fund things like our roads, how we're going to make improvements to those. I'm really proud of the fact that we have continually improved our roads, meaning we actually have a measurement. We actually go out and take pavement quality measurements, and we are working to improve that every year. So those are the type of things that are just happening in the unincorporated area. If you have complaints about your city roads, you got to go down to City Hall. Okay, so one key thing that I think is probably one of the most misunderstood things about county government, we are a political subdivision of the state. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that we are subject to all of the state laws, and we only have the authorities that the state gives us. So we can't just make any ordinance we want. We can't just do different things here unless the state or the state constitution has explicitly said, counties, you have the power and the authority to do whatever those things are. So there are a lot of things that if you were to come to me and say, we really want to fix this, if that power is not granted through the state, those are not things that we are able to do. So that in particular means that sometimes there are things that we disagree with the state on, and oftentimes we don't have the ability to change that. So we have to follow state law, and we administer both state and federal programs. So for example, our DHS, a lot of that is funded through federal dollars. And again, anything that are federal departments or federal programs that are funded by the federal government, and the same with the state, there's a lot of different state and federal guidelines that we have to follow. So we don't always get to, say, control eligibility for SNAP benefits. Even if we had a difference of opinion, we follow what comes out. So those are things that we are subject to, and we just have to make sure that we are carrying out the will of the federal or state government in those programs. However, we do have very specific areas that we can control. Roads are one of those ones that I mentioned. We also fund the budget for all of the elected officials. So you're going to hear in this program about the different areas of the government that are part of county government, but they have different elected leaders that are over those. So for example, the sheriff, the district attorney, the assessor, the treasurer's office obviously does our financial work, but we set the budget for all of those different offices. So the sheriff gets to decide what he's going to do with his money over at the sheriff's office, but we're the ones that are going to decide what that budget is. We also oversee land use decisions, not inside of the city. So again, if you're concerned about a land use issue that's inside of city limits, that has to be taken up by the city itself, but we deal with land use issues in the unincorporated area. Also, because it's a fun one, when the city decides to annex things, we have no control over it. They get to take what they want, and we're along for the ride. So we get to kind of give some feedback, but the cities have the ability to annex whichever parts of unincorporated area that they choose. On land use items, you guys are going to hear a lot about that. So I'll give you a little bit of the commissioner perspective. Some of the things that we do, we have different roles. You know, you hear about the different branches of government, but we kind of have different roles here. So we have some executive functions, we have some legislative functions, and then we have quasi-judicial functions. So you're going to hear a lot about that, but those are different roles that we serve in. And when we make rules for everybody, for example, when we make our land use code, those are legislative functions. Those apply to everyone. That's when everyone can come in, give feedback, and your representatives are going to make those decisions. When it comes to land use decisions, they become a different type of decision. They're quasi-judicial, and I'm not going to get too deep because you guys are going to, I'm sure, you guys got staff who are going to go through all this. But those are different decisions, and they can be a bit more, I don't want to say difficult, but difficult for citizens to sometimes understand, because whenever we're dealing with a land use issue and an application, we're dealing with one citizen. And so that citizen has rights. And so what we're doing when we're doing those land use decisions is we are comparing the application to criteria, and we are just seeing if it fits. It's not about what we like. It's not about what we prefer. We are comparing those because we are balancing what is a private property right with the needs and safety of the community. And so it's a very different type of decision that we get to make here today, and you guys are going to learn a lot more about that. We also have the ability to hire. We have 2 appointees that we hire as the Board of County Commissioners. And so I'm probably going way over my time, right? All right, I'm wrapping it up really quickly. When you're a government nerd and you love policy, it's, you know, you just want to explain it all. You guys are going to get there, though. They thought I talked a lot faster than I do. So we have 2 appointees. We have the county administrator position, who basically carries out the will of the board. And then we have our county attorney, also a very important position, who obviously advises on all legal matters here at the county. Okay. All actions of the board take a majority vote, right? Commissioners don't get to act alone. So you could call your commissioner and want them to do something for you. If they can't get 2 other votes on the Board of County Commissioners, can't make it happen. So this is a really good. So on the Board of County Commissioners, this is not a secret, you guys, but we're all Republicans, all 5 of us. But that doesn't mean we don't have differences of opinions. So all of our votes are not unanimous. You will see that we diverge on issues, and that's because we just have differing opinions. So it's very interesting when you watch that you might think that we all have the same ideas, but not necessarily are they exactly the same. However, regardless of those differences, we do work together very well. We have good working relationships on the board. And we have about a $500 million budget that we have to work together and figure out priorities. And so you'll see, as I said, as we get through the budgeting process, we're really focused on public safety, core services, making sure that we are fiscally sound. And those are things that we do share in common. So, even though we are all elected Republicans, as I said, I think it's important to note that we all feel very strongly about representing everybody in the county to the very best of our abilities. And we do take seriously making sure that citizens are served well. So if you have something that's happening, you're right. Most of the time, interactions happen the first time when something goes wrong, unfortunately. But when things do go wrong, we want to make sure our citizens get good service. So regardless of who you are in our community, we want to make sure of that. We try and do our very best here to serve all citizens. So again, I just want to say, as I go over my time here, I'm living up to the old give a politician a microphone. But I just want to say thank you for taking an interest. Thank you for taking the time to learn about county government, how it functions. And I hope that not only will you learn a lot, but that you will tell your friends and neighbors. I really love hearing that you want to put positive things out there, so you want to give people solutions. Sometimes, I mean, again, I'm just thinking about all the things that you all said about getting the other side of the story. It's great that you are all here, that you will be able to learn about the county, potentially come back and tell us the things that you think we should be doing differently, but also be an ambassador for the county and help those around you who weren't here understand exactly what the county does whenever they have questions. So again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Geithner. Okay, next up, we have the Deputy County Administrator. So Commissioner Geithner just mentioned that County Administrator is one of the 2 positions that are appointed by the board. So tonight, we have Sunny Bryant, who is, again, the Deputy County Administrator. So she grew up in Fremont County, Colorado, and worked in the Florence-Penrose School District and for the City of Florence. She joined Fremont County in February of 2013 as the Budget and Finance Officer, was promoted to County Manager in April of 2016. She began her career as Deputy County Administrator for El Paso County in October of 2022. Sunny is married and has 2 sons.
Okay, thank you so much. And once again, I also want to echo what others have said, and we appreciate everybody taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. And so Brett Waters serves as our county administrator here at El Paso County. He is honestly one of the most exceptional leaders that I've worked for. And so unfortunately, he's not able to be here tonight. So you get the B team here with me serving as the Deputy County Administrator. So just a little bit about myself, as Rubel had indicated, I have a heart for public service. I've served at various levels of local government. And if one thing that I enjoy doing is my small piece in giving back to communities and making them a better place. I love leading teams. I love interacting with various groups. And so serving as the Deputy County Administrator for El Paso County has been kind of one of those dream roles that I have just been blessed to fall into. And so tonight, just a quick overview. So in the county, we have our vision. The county vision is El Paso County will be a trusted regional leader known for excellence in county service delivery. And so when several years ago we were developing the strategic plan and coming up with our vision, mission, and core values, it wasn't one of those things that we wanted to check a box and put it on the shelf. This is something that we want to live by. Our citizens deserve this. We want to make sure we are being that regional leader, that we are, doing our part in providing a safe, happy, prosperous place for our citizens to be in. And so the county's purpose is we provide essential public services to the Pikes Peak region in support of our residents, businesses, and communities, enhancing the freedom for all to thrive. And so once again, we take that very serious. It's something that we're constantly expecting our teams to live up to. We make sure that they're living those values as they provide the services to you all in whatever capacity that is. And then our core values are service-focused, collaboration, accountable, trustworthy, and transparent. And so I appreciate you all here tonight. We're really trying to be transparent in what we're doing. We're trying to get our information out. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for asking those hard questions as you come up with them. And just really appreciate your willingness to spend your time in learning more about El Paso County. So part of the strategic plan is we have 4 objectives that we're working on. So we have infrastructure, service quality, community trust, and health and safety. And so one of the things we work for our teams is as they're doing their performance evaluations, as they're setting their goals, we want to make sure that they're working towards one of those items. We work really hard to be data-driven now. We're not being reactive. We're trying to make sure that, we're spending taxpayer funds wisely. And so all of that goes up through the strategic plan, and it's something that we've been very proud of. So as Commissioner Geithner indicated, so we have the elected officials who are chosen by the citizens of El Paso County. The Board of Commissioners then appoint a county attorney and a county administrator. And then between the county administrator and myself, we oversee the 14 county departments. And so as you can see, and it is a little bit small on the screen, but we each have 7 departments that we oversee. Varying from our IT departments, human resources, and I'm so grateful so many county employees are here, so thank you for being here and learning more about the county. We have Workforce Center. We team up with, actually partner with the City of Colorado Springs for the Office of Emergency Management. It's a regional office. And a couple of things that I wanted to highlight, which actually, one's a fairly new department, so it's the Community Resources Department. So our Justice Services employees, our Environmental Services employees, and our Veteran Services employees fall under that category. And so we have several people in here that I've heard were veterans. So if you haven't gotten connected with our Veteran Services group, I highly encourage you to do that. They work really, really hard to make sure that our veterans receive the benefits that you all have deserved in fighting for our country. So encourage you to do that. And one other thing that I wanted to point out is our economic development team. So they serve the unincorporated portions of El Paso County. There's also a city team that does work within the city, but there's a lot of great things that are happening in unincorporated El Paso County. And so those are just a couple of the teams that I wanted to point out specifically. And then there are 10 services, there are top 10 services that El Paso County provides that the city doesn't provide. We don't have, other groups within the region provide. And so those are listed up on the screen there. Many of you know we have the county jail. And so we actually take in individuals that are arrested within city limits or within, Fountain, other areas. Many of these items you'll actually learn more about throughout this Citizen Academy, so I won't go too in depth, but we do have our pretrial services group that you actually, it doesn't have called out specifically in that in the Citizen College. And so that team actually works really hard to make sure that as individuals are appearing in court, that the judges have all of the information that they need, they understand what they're actually working through with the individuals that are appearing in court. And so this team gets up bright and early. They work really hard to provide that. And then the other one that I wanted to point out, and I indicated a few minutes ago, was Veterans Services. And so we have 2 locations here in El Paso County that provide services to our veterans. And so if you haven't gotten connected with them, please reach out. And then the other departments, you'll actually learn a little bit more throughout this program. And so I won't go too much in depth with those. And so in closing, and I rushed through mine, so I apologize. I know that was pretty fast, but once again, just really want to thank you all for taking your time today to be here. I know that you are going to be throughout the week. It's evenings, and just really appreciate your willingness to come in, learn more about what we do, meet some of our teams, get to know us a little bit better. And as I said, I have a heart for public service. It's something that if I can spend my days making our community a better place, those are days, that I certainly can feel good about it when I go home. And so that's all. I'll turn it back over to Rubel.
Thank you so much, Sunny. So we're about to take a break, 10-minute break. Actually, can I get that last slide back up? Do you mind pulling that last slide back up? I wanted to highlight a couple things real quick, just in terms of how our week is going to run. Obviously, you guys have seen the schedule online as you've been looking through everything, but I just want to point out here. So Human Services, Public Health, County Assessor, Veterans Services, countywide elections, clerk and recorder, all of those are part of the Citizen Service Center that we are going to be touring and learning about tomorrow. So Tuesday night, that's all part of Tuesday night. Okay, Wednesday, the service is not up there, but that's Public Works that we're going to be touring on Wednesday. On Thursday, we will be doing the pretrial services and the district attorney. So those will be Thursday, actually Thursday and Friday are those two. And then Saturday is where the coroner's office, the El Paso County Jail, as well as parks. Those will all be on Saturday throughout the day. So I just wanted to kind of put a little bit of context around, yeah, here's all these services that are this top 10. By the way, you're going to be learning about touching some of the service vehicles and actually going to the jail. You're going to be touring a lot of these facilities, but you're also going to be meeting leaders from every single one of these divisions. So I just wanted to quickly point out throughout the week, hey, this is where you're actually going to be engaging with those various services. Next up, we are going to be talking the budget process for the county. So may I introduce the Chief Financial Officer of the county, Ms. Nikki Simmons. So Nikki Simmons is the CFO, as I just mentioned, where she leads the county's financial services department, overseeing budgeting, finance, purchasing, contracting, and payroll, and provides strategic guidance to ensure transparent, effective stewardship of public funds. She holds a Colorado CPA license since 2005, is a certified public finance officer through the Government Finance Officers Association. She holds both a bachelor's and master's degree in accounting from the University of Colorado, and she is an incredible mixture of no nonsense and a ton of fun mixed into one person. Miss Nikki Simmons.
Thank you, Rubel. I'm not sure I've ever heard anybody describe me as well as that. And sometimes I freak people out because sometimes I am like no nonsense, and sometimes I'm like, Nikki, can you pay attention and be professional in this meeting? And you really never know which person you're going to get. So as Rubel introduced me, I'm Nikki Simmons. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for El Paso County. And my statutory role as the county's budget officer is to ensure that we have a balanced budget. So I also oversee the financial services area. So we pay the bills, we pay the payroll, We contract for things. We ensure everything we're contracting for is with the best use of taxpayer funds. We're always cognizant that the money that we're spending comes out of the pockets of our taxpayers. So that's always first and foremost in our minds when we're working on what we're doing. I started out with this slide, but it's not actually part of my speech, but I'm going to talk about it for a second because I think this is one of the coolest slides that we have in the county. So these top 10 services that we provide that nobody else does. What we're trying to say there is there's a lot of things your county government does for you that the cities aren't required to provide. And so one of the questions I get, and I'll get more into this in my speech later, is that why do you pay county taxes when you live in an incorporated area? If you live in the city of Colorado Springs, or you live in Fountain, or you live in the town of Palmer Lake, why do you also have to pay county taxes? Because you're paying taxes to your city as well. Well, these things that are up on the slide behind us is actually where the primary portion of our budget goes. And there are services that are provided to all residents of El Paso County, not just the things in unincorporated areas. There's actually very few services that we provide to only unincorporated areas, such as roads, right? You pay road tax to city roads, road tax to the county with county roads. Patrol, for the most part, there's actually some nuances there where we do things in city limits, but for the most part, our sheriff's patrol is in unincorporated only. And some of our parks are in unincorporated areas, some are actually in city limits. Everything else that we do, in land planning, sorry, didn't want to forget you guys. Land planning is for unincorporated areas only. Everything else that we do touches every citizen of El Paso County. So wanted to keep that up there. I'll quickly go through the county's budget process and an overview of our budget. Talk to you a little bit about Tabor. We've all heard of Tabor. What does that mean for the county? And how we go through budget planning. So the budget is one of a couple primary statutory responsibilities of the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners sets the budget, and that creates our legal authority to operate for that fiscal year. The county runs on a calendar year, so we're January to December year. We follow an official policy that's board approved on how we put that budget together. We are really very conscientious about ensuring that it follows our strategic plan. So every single thing we're putting into our budget, we look at how is that going to help us accomplish our strategic plan, or is there money we can move from one place to another that would help us get us more progress on the strategic plan? The two documents are very closely tied to each other. And then if you really want to fall asleep at night, read Title 29, which is the Colorado budget law. It's not my favorite, honestly. So I always talk about the budget. So the budget and land use, to me, are the two main things that the county commissioners do, and they're the things that they have to do. They hire those two appointees, but without the Board of County Commissioners passing the budget and without them approving land use issues, like we wouldn't function as a county. So for 2026, so this is the preliminary balanced budget for 2026. We have a $502 million revenue budget overall, and you can see how that's broken up. So sales tax is about 42% of our budget. Then property taxes make up about $92 million, which is about 18% of our budget. That intergovernmental line is grants that we receive mostly through the state, includes a lot of federal funds. And then highway user taxes, interest, specific ownership tax, revenues, things like that. If you break it up by locally collected taxes versus grants that we take to do our statutory duties, like human services grants, things like that. So if you look at just those locally collected taxes and fees, we are funded by about 60% sales tax, 30% property tax, and 10% all those other fees and charges. So we are mostly reliant on sales tax, which we know is more volatile with economic trends. Property taxes is less volatile, yet taxes the same asset over and over. So there's differences in policy and rationalization for what taxes we have, but those are the limits that we're set at right now, and so that's what we follow. Then our expenditure budget for 2026 2026 is 531 million. You'll note that that is higher than the revenue budget for many reasons. One is this is all encompassing of all the grants, and we're spending down some of our grants, things like that. But it also, on the first page, had a Tabor refund. So there was a negative number on there. So that affects the overall amount. So it's not as off as much as it looks like. So if I go back to the revenue, the 502 million includes just shy of $5 million in a refund that we're giving from 2020. I'm going to get my years mixed up. 2024 overage that we refund on the 2025 tax bills payable in 2026. So when you break down our budget, the largest fund is obviously our general fund that encompasses most everything we do that's not in a separate fund. Human services is our next largest. We are self-insured, so then we look at self-insurance fund, our road and bridge fund, and then some much smaller funds after that. The general fund is not just made up of general taxes. There's a lot of restricted fees and grants that go into that general fund, and those we track very closely. The county our budget is 66% personnel, because how do we get the services done that you all use? People. So keeps our HR department incredibly busy. But we mostly provide services through people. Then we have 29% operating and 5% capital. That capital is primarily in our public works, parks, and facilities departments. And the operating helps us do things all across all of the county. If you break down the budget even further, and these numbers are probably tiny up there, but I'm going to tell you all, there's a really cool tool. It's brand new this year, really excited about it. I'm probably the only person who gets excited about budget besides Commissioner Nelson, who's like my budget bestie. Online, if you go to the county's website and you go to the budget and finance page, you can click on our ClearGov preliminary balance budget, and you can dig through all of these numbers. That was published on October 7th. It's open for public inspection until we adopt the budget, which is scheduled for December 9th. So I encourage you all, if you're more interested in the county's budget, go dig through there. It's a super cool document, in my view, and I'm a nerd. It's true. There is a section for every single department and office. So you can get in and see what the sheriff is planning on spending his funds on. You can see how many employees he has in what areas, what his strategic priorities are, what his plan is for 2026. Same thing, you can go look at my department. You can see like how many people do they have in each area? What are they trying to get accomplished in 2026 with this funding? What did they accomplish in 2025 with the funding we had? And those pages exist for every single department and office throughout the county. So really cool information. Go out and look at it if you have a chance. I will tell you overall, so who remembers how much our total budget was? $531 million. $179 million of that goes into public safety. So a primary portion of our budget, the biggest lump, is public safety. And that's going to be the sheriff's office, district attorney, coroner, and then some other smaller things like emergency management, justice services. There's a couple of smaller things in there. But $179 million is in public safety. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of information to show you how our sales tax typically trends, which the last few years have been anything but typical. The Board of County Commissioners is probably really tired of me telling them that my crystal ball is broken and I don't know what the forecast looks like, but we do our best. We work really closely with local economists. We look with state economists, trying to project sales taxes because those things follow the economy. But you can see back here in 2021, we had a huge spike in our sales tax. Does anyone remember what happened back then? The feds pushed a whole lot of money into the economy through CARES grants, ARPA grants. You got PPP loans. You got the tax rebates. You got a check in the mail from the U.S. Treasury. All of that increased discretionary spending. So our sales tax increased by 22%. But at the same time, we had 8% inflation, 5% inflation. And so things like that continually offset. Now we're seeing slight annual increases in sales taxes, not as high of inflation, but those numbers aren't quite hitting inflation either. So we're seeing less in revenues than we're seeing inflationary costs. So with that, we have to all kind of scrunch in our budget, make sure that we are operating without creating a deficit. Then we talked about property taxes. These are based on the certification that our county assessor's office gives us. We receive an initial assessment in August of each year, and then they give us a finalized one in late November. So the one in August just helps us plan, and then we get a finalized one late November that helps us certify. El Paso County has a voter authorized mill levy of 8.46 mills. Used to be like 12, and then we did some reductions, and it's 8.46 now. That's the maximum we can issue in a mill levy. We, in the past, 5-6 years, have not issued our full mill levy due to Tabor constraints. And so because of Tabor and a couple other laws, one time we had to issue a credit due to the 5.5% mill levy law, which you guys don't want to get into with me, I promise you. Unless you do, because I would love to spend, I love teaching people about all the mill levy laws, but I don't want you to fall asleep. The maximum mill levy is 8.46. I think right now our preliminary balanced budget is like 7.135. So that's about a 16% reduction in what we could issue if not for Tabor. And so that Tabor is allowing that property valuation to grow faster than the government revenues would grow, and allow that way when you see a 20% spike in the valuation of your home, our taxes don't grow by 20%. They're subject to Tabor. And then, hey, there's my 1.374 mill levy that I was talking about earlier. I forgot I had a slide on that. So essentially, like on a $500,000 house, that would rebate you $42.94. And our property tax trends grow much more consistently. If you remember, I said like property tax is more forecastable, more stable. And you can see that based on this trend. So this is the first year. So the state legislature changed how property taxes are calculated to give property tax relief a couple of years ago. But what they did is, for the first time in Colorado history, they created what's called a bifurcated rate. And so school districts are taxing you at a higher rate than local governments can now. So take a $500,000 house, and then what the law says is for 2026 taxes, you take 6.25% of the value of that house. So if you take that $500,000 house and multiply by 6.25%, we are going to tax you as if your house was worth $31,250. And then we apply our mill levy on it, in addition to other governments putting their mill levy. So this is actually a specific house's mill levy with the city, the library district, probably the water conservancy district, El Paso County, possibly a metro district that you live in, things like that. And so for this property, that would mean $1,214 for all those local governments. But I didn't talk about the school district, because then the school districts get a higher rate. So while we can tax you as if your house is at 6.25%, the school districts tax you at 7.05%. So they're going to tax you as if your house is worth $35,250 instead of $31,250. So $4,000 more. So they get to put their mill levy on a higher rate, and they're going to get $1,606. So for this specific $500,000 home, you would pay $2,820.73. El Paso County's portion of that is $223. So there is a consistent thought. I talk to citizens all of the time who think, well, I paid El Paso County $2,820. What are you doing with my money? Because I sent it to Chuck Borman, the county treasurer. He took that money from me. But really, he's collecting on behalf of all the entities, and then he has a statutory duty to send that back out. So the school district's tax, the city's tax, the Water Conservancy District Library, all of that gets collected at the treasurer's office and then distributed to all those entities. So for this specific home, they would send $223 to the county, and that's what the commissioners then get to budget to use. So I have a little dollar that breaks that out. So on this, and again, this is an actual home, and I think it was in District 11. It was in a metro district. The school district will get about 57% of that money. The metro district, which many people live in metro districts that maybe built the infrastructure, that they're maintaining the grounds around you, would take 27% of the money. El Paso County, that property tax gets 7.74%. City of Colorado Springs is a little lower at 4%. Remember, the city's sales taxes is double ours, so we're more reliant on property taxes than the city is. Tabor. Who in this room has heard of Tabor? Good, awesome. So Tabor is our taxpayer bill of rights. It essentially is protections for taxpayers and how the government can tax you. So it was approved by voters in 1992. And what it does in generic terms is it creates a revenue cap on all county revenue, and except for it excludes specific things. So it excludes federal grants, it excludes donations, sale of capital assets, and a few minor other things. So everything that we do gets counted against that Tabor cap. What's interesting is that state revenue also counts against that Tabor cap. So while Commissioner Geithner earlier mentioned that we're a political subdivision of the state, and so the state mandates that we do certain things, but many times we'll fund it, if not partially fund it, but then those revenues, so when the state takes those taxes up to Denver, they collect them, it goes against the state's Tabor cap. Then when they send them back down to the county to do mandated services, it counts against our Tabor cap again. And so some of the times you'll find me fighting with the state about we fight about unfunded mandates, but sometimes we have to fight about funded mandates because we have to be careful of our Tabor cap. And we are incredibly conscientious in El Paso County about our Tabor cap and ensuring that we follow the spirit and the technical rules of Tabor. So Tabor allows for government to only grow by a formula that is determined by, for counties, it is by growth, which is a construction number that's certified by the assessor, and basically takes the value of all new construction, divides it by minus deconstruction, and divides all that by how much the overall county assessment is, and tells us how much we grew by for the year. And then it lets me grow by CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. So what all of that does is it essentially means, if it actually worked out like in a perfect world, that each citizen would be paying the same dollars in taxes per year in a cost neutral way, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like in real dollars. So because of inflation, if your taxes was $100 one year and there's 2% inflation, essentially every citizen would be paying about $102. So government's never growing. We're allowed to maintain a steady state. And so the same thing applies to property taxes. So we have two Tabor caps that we have to follow. We follow Tabor cap on property taxes alone, and ensure that property taxes aren't growing by more than Tabor allows. And we also follow a Tabor cap for all of our revenues. So when we add in property tax with sales tax, any fees, fines, charges, state grants, things like that. So it's a little complicated, but we follow it every year. And that's why from 2024, you saw that we're issuing about a $4.5 million Tabor refund. That's going to be because we had more revenues come in 2024 than we were allowed to keep or spend, and so we are sending those back to the taxpayers. Those are planning to go back to the taxpayers in a form of a flat credit to your personal residence property taxes, so residential real property. And it's a similar method to what we've done in the past. Really quickly, I just want to mention some priorities that we've had in our budget the last few years. This is a chart that shows our local investment in roads, our investment in local roads. And we have been making progress since 2014 when we made it an intentional priority in 2014 to add money to the budget for road, pavement preservation, and grading, things like that. So if you look back at the budget, I think in 2014, the overall public works budget for road and bridge was $14 million a year. And in the preliminary budget for next year, it's $40.2 million. And so we have, without raising taxes, been able to make huge strides in the the investment in our roads. We have a great public works team. I think you all are going out there later this week, and you'll hear more about what they do. And actually, they're way more fun than me because you get to like look at tractors and stuff, right? Sorry, I don't have any of that. I'm like the uncool department. But you can see here the investment into local roads. We also have reserves. One thing I want to point out, and this is a little bit of a pat on the back for me, but more for our leadership at the county. We are one of very few governments in Colorado that is not making cuts into 2026. So you're probably hearing in the news, people, the city of Colorado Springs, Jefferson County, Larimer County, Denver did a huge layoff, furloughs, things like that. El Paso County in our preliminary balanced budget is not recommending any furloughs, any layoffs, or any operational cuts. And that is the result of some of the things that we've done over the past 5 years, right? Maybe even longer, but intentional conservative budgeting forecasts, ensuring that we weren't adding positions that we couldn't afford ongoing, ensuring that we were being very conservative in what we were spending money on, and always focusing on our strategic priorities and ensuring we were using one-time funding to do so. So we have emergency reserves. We also have fund balance of about 23% of our overall funds. And I will tell you that the government finance officer's best practice for that is a minimum of 16.67%, which is very specific, but it's 2/12 worth, so 2 months worth of revenues and reserves. And we're sitting at 23% with a dollar sign in front of it. I don't know whether there's a dollar sign there. I probably did that. Future plans, things that we're always thinking about. Local roads, so our backlog, as well as continuing costs for that with road maintenance, facility maintenance, human capital, and parks projects. We're always ensuring we're looking at our strategic plan with those items. Mentioned earlier that we have public hearings. I would love for anybody to participate in these. We have public comment at all of them. We also invite your comments. And even if you just want to email them, you want to give me a call, you want to give a commissioner a call. We have public hearings for the budget. So we've already held budget hearing number 1, which is where the commissioners had to listen to me talk for a couple of hours and explain what's going on in the budget. Next Tuesday, we're having budget hearing number 2, which is where departments and offices requesting additional funding in their preliminary balanced budget will come forward and do presentations on why they're asking for the money they're asking for. November 4th is my favorite day. I get to do math in public on a spreadsheet. And it is what we call Final Direction Day, which is a non-action day. But I get to come up here, talk with the commissioners, and ask. That's where the budget goes from being the administration's proposal to the commissioners on what should be in the budget to being the commissioner's budget. So that day, the commissioners get to get up and say, okay, I want to cut this budget and put it over into XYZ project. And so this is the day the commissioners asked to do those things. And what I do is then say, okay, Commissioner X has suggested moving $2 million from this to this. Do I have 2 other commissioners who would be in agreement to do that? So that way I know when I come back for a final vote, I have a budget document that I will get approval from the commissioners that, they're not, one commissioner's not wanting to do something and then there's no other commissioners who are in agreement. Because as Commissioner Geithner stated earlier, you have to get 3 commissioners to agree to do anything in the county because we have a board of 5. So I get to do that day. Then my staff takes that next month and takes the direction that they had, gets the final assessment from the assessor's office, and we come back on December 9th for final approval. So that is everything that they gave me time for. If you ever want to talk more about it, I love to talk budget. I will talk your ear off. But yeah, are there any questions for me? All these are regular Board of County Commissioners meetings, so they're all 9 a.m. on Tuesdays. Yes. That's correct. So the question is the road budget just for unincorporated? And that is correct. We only maintain roads in unincorporated areas. And so this is our road budget just for unincorporated because that's all we have. We combine this, which is our local dollars, with Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority dollars, PPRTA, that creates our overall ability to maintain roads in unincorporated El Paso County. Any other questions for me? We have a cool little budget exercise for you guys to do right now. So do I have a copy of it? Ryan's walking down here. Oh, see, I like Ruble better. Huh? Are you doing it? Did you do that? Did you do that?
Did everyone get the exercise?
All right. So as is every single year at the county, we don't have enough money to do everything that we want and or need to do. So we're going to put you guys into groups. I don't know. You want to do this? He's waving.
So, yeah, you guys are going to play county commissioner for a little bit. So a couple of things. You guys are going to break yourselves up into groups of 5. As you saw on the map earlier, the commissioner districts are broken up into districts. Boundaries don't split between homes, so 2 commissioners can never live in the same home. So if you came here with a married couple or something like that, you guys need to break yourselves up. You get into groups of 5. We've got to, yeah. Yeah, not in the legal sense, more in the temporary sense for the purposes of maintaining Colorado law. And then, so yeah, break up into groups of 5. And then you're going to see the instructions on here. There's a couple of rules. As Nikki said, there's not quite enough money to go with all the requests that's in there. Obviously, that's on purpose. I want you guys to feel the pain that that goes into making some budgetary decisions. But you need 3 people in your group to agree to it. So if you're the one person that wants to do something that's not even on the page, and you can't take your ball and go home. Everybody gets their say, but only what the majority agrees to do is what makes it on there. So I want you guys to break them to groups of 5, go through the budget exercise, and then be ready to report your results as a group. So eventually you'll have one person that's going to go real quickly through what you guys did. And then one more thing, if you guys feel so inclined, you guys want to keep a track of your political affiliation, if you feel comfortable with it, of your group of 5, just so we can see how things change. Any questions for me about the exercise? All right, your time starts now. All right, so which group wants to go first? You guys? All right. Yeah. The extrovert in the group raised their hand. All right. Paula's bringing you a microphone. Rubel's bringing you a microphone. All right.
So we noticed that there were 2 items that were mandated, a mandate by the state that we had to account for. So we took out $2 million for the budget surplus and $1 million for the human services, and then the $2 million for the other departments. And we also noticed that the self-insurance fund staff estimates next year's insurance payouts will increase by $4 million. So that sounds like another requirement to us. And so we took out that $4 million. And then a point that someone made, a member group made, is that when people are asking for money, they give an overestimate. And so we gave the sheriff and district attorney, instead of $2 million, just $1 million. And then that leaves us as $8 million for our surplus. And then we gave the rest of that to the Public Works Department.
I'm sorry, to what?
The Public Works Department.
Thank you. All right, nicely done. Yeah. Anything that you want to add? She said that probably won't get us sued, which is good. We don't have the county attorney here tonight, but I can act like a lawyer and just tell you guys no.
Okay, hello everybody. Get the five of us here. So we were incomplete, and I wanted to go forth with, explaining kind of the learning process of, getting to know the different personalities, getting to know like what exactly they're asking for and the rules. So we took up a lot of our time. But anyway, so we went bullet by bullet. So we saw that like they did when there was law mandated, we just kind of went with it. So that was the first two bullets. The math kind of threw me off because there's like 24 versus 23 million or something.
That would be the error that he's trying to blame on me.
I see.
I didn't.
Okay, yeah, that kind of hung me up for a second. Not a big deal. I think the things like that weren't legally mandated. So the public works, we had to like define it for ourselves. Self-insurance was a little confusing as far as how that actually works. Does it roll over to the next year? Do we have a history of problems in the departments? I don't know. So there's a lot of context that we just didn't hypothetically make up. So overall, that took up too much time. We were incomplete because there's a lot of context we had to go into and we didn't have time for. So thanks.
I love it. Like those are all. Oh, we're going to get sued and not be able to operate because there's a deadline and you didn't make any decisions. Sorry, I forgot our county attorneys here. Yeah, that's. And we're just going to cut administration. No, those are all very valid questions. And so there are things that you can be thinking about. If you fund it into self-insurance and then the claims don't happen, does that money roll over? Yeah, it does. And so we constantly are like, how much are we going to have left at the end of this year that we can use, maybe offset some of the things we're planning on next year? So very good points.
That you can look and say, are there some places?
Yes, absolutely. So there are did you all hear the question, can we move stuff around during the year, during middle of the year if we're like, hey, we over budgeted for this? Some yes, some no. So kind of some fun nuance with county budget laws. Once I put it into the road and bridge fund for the year, I can never take it back out. Same thing with human services. I put it into the fund, I can't take it back out. But even weirder than that, so say human services, Alexis here comes and tells me we don't have enough money. I can send her, well, I can't, the Board of County Commissioners can, I'll be clear, but we can do a resolution and we can send more money to human services. I cannot send more to road and bridge throughout the year. So once we set their budget, that is their budget. Can't go either way. And that has to do with a weird thing with shareback laws, and it stops something that used to happen in the 80s. It doesn't happen anymore. But so certain funds can't give up money. So certain departments can. So say we're starting to see a decrease in something and we need to move money over to the sheriff's office. There's a lot of departments in the general fund that could then be reduced to send that over. But the road and bridge fund, because it's a separate fund and there's a lot of laws about it, they cannot give up money to fund something else. So except for in the case of a presidentially declared disaster. But it's a super weird nuance. It creates a little bit of a hardship in budgeting for it because it's like, oh, more money came in throughout the year. Our sales tax is doing really well. Can't give it to road and bridge. You can give it to road and bridge the next year through original appropriations.
Next group.
I guess I'm doing it. We had a lot of the same kinds of debates about, do we have enough information to determine what is mandated and what is not. We had really good discussion of what it means to not put money into the self-insurance fund. And ultimately, we just decided to fund all of the smaller requests and give the remaining $7 million to Public Works. So 1 million went to Human Services, 2 to all other departments, 4 to self-insurance fund, 7 to Public Works, and 2 to the district attorney.
So none to self-insurance?
What's that?
So none to self-insurance?
No, four.
Oh, you put the 4 in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't want to underfund that, especially the county employees don't want to underfund that.
So, and this is kind of similar to what we've been saying with a couple of groups, not going to get us sued, but if we don't give the $15 million, I'll give you some more context to Public Works, they're going to say our quality index is going to continue to go down. So now that we're making these decisions, like, yeah, all these other departments need this, now our roads are going to start failing. And what happens when our roads fail? $15 million could cost us $20 million next year, right? Right. And honestly, I'm picking on everybody. There's not a right answer to this solution. Just be clear, there's not a right answer to anything. And my favorite thing, and I'll say, is that what I do at the county is budgeting is the uniform spreading of dissatisfaction. Like, is everybody equally unhappy with what I've done? Then I did my job. Like, no one's ever going to be happy.
How much of the actual sort of, how many or how much of the actual projects that you see projected for the future year for these budgets do you actually get to look at? Or is it just a matter of taking a staff's estimate that, hey, this is what we're going to need? So are you able to see really like how many bridges and roads you're gonna do? Is the sheriff true? I mean, are they trying to spend money on building a new facility or on training facilities, or is their budget going to something else? Can you see all those details and then to allow you to help make a better decision about that?
We can see a lot of the details. I wouldn't say we get to see all of the details specifically when it comes to elected offices. Again, our responsibility statutorily is to fund them, and then they get to do what they need to do with the funding, and we don't get to tell those elected offices how to spend their money. But they do come to us to say, I need this much more, and they tell us what they're going to try to do with it, and we make those decisions. For internal departments that report up through county administration, which is the majority of the county, it's about 1,800 to 1,900 of our employees, we do get all of those details. We get, if we give you, they come forward with this is actually a real request, $15 million for pavement preservation for roads. What is it that you're going to get done with that? What will it cause, our pavement quality indexes to be? What roads might you get done with it? And obviously we have a preliminary list that can shift throughout the year if a rainstorm comes through and messes with something. But we do get all of those lists and make decisions based on that.
I was just going to ask if there was an official, failing road criteria so that we could actually evaluate if that's a true request.
There is, and I'm sure they will talk more about that at the public works session, but absolutely there is best practices and there's criteria on what roads are failing, what roads aren't, and we have data on if we don't fix it now, it's going to deteriorate to XYZ and it's going to cost this much more, and we absolutely do all of that math.
PQI, remember that for DPW, pavement quality. All right, which group next? Right?
So the good news is we had a consensus of 5. Everyone agreed.
Oh, good job.
In 10 minutes. We gave 1 additional for human services. Initially, we thought we were going to have $2 million to sheriff, but when we read the last line, it said the elected sheriff and district attorney would like an additional $2 million to go to the Justice Department to clarify. So it's not going to the sheriff or the district attorney. The money is actually directed to justice. And that was an oversight because we didn't read carefully. We gave $4 million to self-insurance fund. We gave $2 million to justice services, and that left us with $7 million. And we said we'd go ahead and give them $7 million, even though that was half of what they requested. And now with the information you shared, we might want to go back and revisit that conversation because of the index thing of evaluating the roads.
Right, and we don't have time to do that kind of exercise, but absolutely, you're right on. The justice services thing is a very real example of our budget. A couple of years ago, 6-7 years ago, our sheriff's office offered to put about $400,000 now into justice services. It's saving us about $3 to $4 million a year by allowing more people out on pretrial release who are nonviolent offenders. So a very financial decision, right? We couldn't afford general funds for justice services, but it was going to help the sheriff's office out to do that. And so we made that decision, which was able to help keep critical needs from the sheriff's office out of our budget planning process. So. I'm like, I feel like there's too many people here.
Okay, so we kind of have a similar budget as well. I think we were all in agreement and everything. We did do the Human Services Department based on the new law, and we did give them the $1 million. The other department and an administration for Colorado General Assembly, we did give them their full $2 million as well. Self-insurance, we agreed, we gave them the $4 million. And Public Works, we gave them $9 million, and Sheriff's Department, we didn't give them anything because we didn't like that last sentence about diverting people away from the jail. We didn't know what that really meant. So it sounded like, what is this, like protesters or just like,
And with that, and you're right, you didn't have enough information. So the person who requested this needs to give you more information and tell you
Yeah.
what it's going to do. And again, it was about putting people on pretrial release who, they're in jail and can't afford their $10,000 bond, so they stay there for 7 days. Well, it costs us $200 a day to take care of that inmate when they probably shouldn't be in jail.
But there's pluses and minuses to that too. Have been charged with a crime. So that's why that was constructed that way, to try to make it difficult. Different times, the answer may be different based on the values of a board or the environment, broader community.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, one more group. Rubel's getting the steps in. Don't fall. We're self-insured.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah, I'm like,
we've got self-insurance.
Self-insurance fund can't take that.
So obviously this is an exercise, so you're never going to have all the information you want. So we made it pretty simple. We pretty much made it that everything except for the last two requests were pretty much mandatory. And then we went with the assumption of basically investing the $2 million into the justice services. We would give it to them based on it possibly saving us on the data, saving us more money throughout other places. And since the briefing told us that we've given so much money over the last couple of years to the roads to make them better, that we would just take the $7 million out of the roads. But based on the new information of we can't give them any more money during the year, I'm sure our 5 commissioners that were unanimous might cut the district attorney request down to $1 million, give that extra $1 million to the roads, and then see what kind of savings we got following the next year of investing the $1 million, and then adjust from there.
See, and I love that approach because that's exactly what I did a couple of years back and said, can we start with like 3 people and see if we get the impact that we're looking for? And if we are, then we'll continue to go down this path. So.
All right, anybody else that needs to go? Any other group that we missed? So yeah, I think you guys did a great job with the exercise. Oh, wait. Oh, was there the group up there? The board of introverts. I love it. Okay. As long as you meet that final deadline. But no, I mean, this is designed to give you an idea of what it is that the board has to face. You might want to spend more money on roads, but these other things come from the legislature. You could technically decide to try to ignore them or something like that, but there would be consequences for that too. Yes, sir. No. There's a very technical term called unfunded mandate, which my shop is government affairs. I think government affairs, the commissioners, a lot of people hate unfunded mandates, but the only thing worse than an unfunded mandate is an underfunded one. And if the state sends us money to execute a program that goes against our Tabor cap, so if they sent us the $2 million and we were over our cap, we just have to refund that money to you anyway. But yeah, just, you might want to spend all the money on roads, but these other things come down. There are other priorities. It's competing. And, the roads discussion is usually where these things fall out. But like Nikki said, you put off your dental cleanings for a while and you get a root canal later. It's more painful. It's more expensive. So you have to strike that balance.
And maybe it was because the instructions were a little murky, but I really kind of said that none of you came forward and said, but let's cut these other departments. I'm going to cut $1 million out of government affairs. That's true, you don't. Okay, let's cut $1 million out of the facilities department or human resources. Last year we had people that were like, we're going to cut the entire parks budget and send that over to the district attorney's office. But I just want you guys to cut Ryan's budget.
All right, so remember your groups, because there's going to be a land use exercise where it's something similar, where you guys have to weigh in on a land use decision. And with that, we will turn it over.
All right. So far, we have heard from the county commissioner, we've heard from the county administrator, and also talked about the county budget and hearing from the county CFO. So the next and the last department that we are going to talk to tonight, or hear from tonight, is going to be the planning division. So I'd like to introduce Joseph Letke, Ryan Hauser, and Kurt Arnoldusen. Did I say that right? Okay. All right. So, gentlemen, if you guys would come up. So Joseph holds a Bachelor of Science in Geography and has 9 years of experience working directly within government planning, building, and community development departments. He's currently pursuing his master's in public administration at UCCS. We've got Ryan, who is a principal planner, holds a Master of Urban and Regional Planning from the University of Florida, has over 10 years of direct planning experience, and is certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. And lastly, Kurt is a code enforcement supervisor. He should be your favorite person on this board. Holds a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, is a retired police officer, and has over 10 years of code enforcement experience. Gentlemen.
All right, thank you so much. So this presentation is definitely going to be the most exciting and something I'm very passionate about. Planning may sound boring, but the interactions and the plans and the work that we do is extremely exciting. It really shapes our built environment and our community for now and forever. So to start off, I want to give a brief overview of some of our planning staff and some changes that have happened in the past couple of years. So I've been with the department for 8 years. And as I said earlier, that each year has progressively gotten better and better and better, whether it's the quality of staff that we have with the experience, level of education of my coworkers. Our director is fantastic and has such a great wealth of experience working in different municipalities. And then our the planning manager, Justin Kilgore, excellent experience. So the staff that you have for this department is just very well educated, well experienced, extremely knowledgeable in these topics. So this first slide is just kind of a really low-level overview of what we do. The planning department is broken up into 3 divisions: planning division, the code enforcement division, and then the planning services division. So probably the primary function of the planning division is plan and land use review. The code enforcement division ensures that the county code is being enforced, including the zoning code and our adopted ordinances. And then the planning services division handles really all of the administrative functions of this department. So over-the-counter applications, first-line customer support, and then support to all of our other staff. So I have on here, what are the goals of the planning division? But I really want to bring attention to this visual. A lot of concerns that citizens have is regarding issues of traffic or safety, water, all these issues are reviewed heavily by staff. Before an item, such as a subdivision or rezone, gets to that level where it's at in front of your county commissioners, your staff has reviewed these plans thoroughly. They've checked for all these issues. So this is actually a plan that I am currently reviewing. There's so many comments. All the green boxes are essentially my comments that I wrote regarding issues or challenges, spelling errors, you name it. This is really important because this property owner or developer will be selling lots to families to build new homes on them. So there's that protection of the public, if you say, that's done by planning staff before these lots can be sold. So ensuring that lots aren't completely in floodplains, or they're not going to fall off a cliff, or you're not going to have a flooded basement. Those are all the really components that we look at during the plan review. So this one is a particular challenged application, but it's just kind of to give you an overview of what we're doing before these applications get anywhere close to the Board of County Commissioners. So the next slide is regarding the county's code. The current land development code is what we use to review these applications too, including the approval criteria. The currently adopted code is from 2007, so it is quite dated. We are in the process of working with a consultant to update the land development code. In the past couple of years, there's been a lot of changes and new developments as far as short-term rentals, breweries, wineries. A lot of those land uses are not strictly discussed in the current code, so we have to work to ensure that what we see in the actual market reflects what the county's code says, and to ensure that there's no gaps between what's being wanted for development and what is allowed. I believe that'll be next year. They're still in the process. There is a public feedback component where a section of the code will be released and you can comment on it from the public standpoint. And also staff is currently making comments, so it's kind of a back and forth right now. I don't have the exact timeline, but next year.
Okay, module 1 is available on the website. So is there any other modules that'll be available to the public?
I'm not positive. We would ask you to reach out to our staff. However, unfortunately, the staff member that's working on the land development code update's not here tonight. But we do have our contact information at the end of the presentation, and we can certainly get that to you so we can get all of your questions answered. Justin Kilgore is the planning manager. He is also a very good resource, and he can definitely answer some questions as well.
Okay, and I have one question too. Who is the consultant?
Perfect. So I am told that we're a little short on time, so I'm going to try to blow through these slides quickly. The next few slides more or less go through more regulatory components to what we do. So this slide, in essence, echoes a statement that Commissioner Geithner had made during her presentation, in that all of the land use authority that the county has is basically dictated by the statutes. So with regards to land use, El Paso County can't make any decisions or can't make any considerations that aren't explicitly identified in the state statutes. So all of our regulations, all of our review criteria, everything that we look at and everything that we consider when we are considering applications for approval is mandated by state statute. And that essentially comes from this concept of police power, which I believe is referenced in the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, that basically states that all regulations have to be related back to this concept of protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So it would be impossible in a presentation like this to go over every single review criteria of every single application type, but as Joe had illustrated in the slide where he showed the land use application that he was reviewing, we do review things per a lot of different criteria points, and there are a lot of components that go into every single project that we review, and every single one of those components is required to relate back to this idea of, is the decision we're making in the best interest of the public health, safety, and welfare. One of those criteria points that most of the land use applications that will go before the Board of County Commissioners, most of these applications are required to show general conformance with the Your El Paso Master Plan. You all may or may not be familiar with the master plan. This was a document that was adopted by El Paso County in response to a statutory requirement that local jurisdictions create a unified comprehensive plan for the county. Prior to this county-wide master plan, the county had multiple, we called them small area plans. We had 7 or 8 of them, some of them dating back to the 60s and 70s, so a lot of the information was a little outdated. This was adopted in 2021, and the general idea was that all of the development applications that come through our department should be looked at a more cohesive, from a more cohesive perspective, so that we're looking at the same criteria for every single application. It doesn't really matter where in the county it's located, we're still looking at it based on the same set of points. So something that was interesting about our master plan, and we actually won an award from the American Planning Association for the master plan for what we called the place-based approach. So instead of using conventional future land use categories, which most master plans or in the city comprehensive plans would use, they'll use what they call a future land use map, that any land use action is required to be consistent with the future land use map. The county does things a little bit differently, noting that we have such a unique diversity of regions in the county. We came up with this concept of the place type, which is based on land use patterns, it's based on geographic features, and the bulk of what we look at is ensuring that land use applications are consistent with this place type so that you're not getting things that are way too out of character with the surrounding area. The place types kind of identify these loose land use categories. So for instance, if you have the rural place type, which is the one on the top in the green, the idea is that if an applicant were to come to our department and say, hey, I want to put a heavy industrial, manufacturing plant on my property, I have 40 acres, I'm out by Calhoun, they're in the rural place type, we're going to look at this and basically say, in order to potentially rezone this property, we'll get to your question too, but basically, in order to do that, they would need to rezone the property to accommodate whatever heavy industrial use they're trying to do. And we would look at this matrix and we would look at the place type and say, well, the first criteria point for a rezone application is that it be consistent with the master plan and the place type. And we're not seeing that here, so it might be a challenge for you to get that property rezoned. So that's kind of the gist of it. And the idea is that we're protecting the surrounding neighbors' personal property rights. And that essentially is the main goal of zoning, is that we are trying to allow someone to use their property in the way that they want to use, but not to the detriment of the surrounding property owners. So the idea is that you have a right to use your property in whatever way that you see fit, but if it comes to the detriment of your neighbor, you might not be able to have that right. Totally.
So I have a question about the Your El Paso County Master Plan. Is there some type of feedback loop? Because some of the place types that were identified in that master plan are actually inaccurate. I mean, they're completely inaccurate. So, is there a way that we can provide that feedback back to the county so that they're annotated correctly? Because as you said, if landowners own that property out there, then we need to be acknowledged for the type of land out there, the land use out there. And so when you indicate that it's a residential lot, but it's actually agriculture and it's a large lot, it's large lot rural, not large lot residential, or however it is in that other place type there, it's really wrong, because if you guys are using that, as you should be, then you're not aware of what it's like out there. And we did not realize that this was a problem until we actually had the Carmen Line annexation, and we went and we did all of this research on what artifacts are they using to say that this is actually consistent with the land usage out there, because it's absolutely not. So I just wanted to know, is there a way that El Paso County can make a feedback loop so that the residents of the unincorporated areas can follow up and make sure that our current place types are accurate with the master plan?
So we don't currently have any plans at the moment to amend the master plan, which would include amending the place type map. I believe that's something that would be done down the road. The master plan was intended as a 35-year document, and the idea is that as things change, as the county grows, as the land use pattern changes, we would be updating that. Currently, we don't really have any plans to do so at the moment, but I'm sure that's something that we would definitely be willing to do in the future. And we're always receptive to citizen input. So if a customer, well, I should say citizen, but we would consider all of the citizens our customers. If a citizen calls me and says, hey, I have a concern with what my property is identified in the master plan, we would take note of that. And we would see if that's something that we could potentially change if we were to do a master plan update. The other thing that's important that I probably should have mentioned at the beginning when I started talking about the master plan is that the master plan itself is not a regulation. It's more intended as a guiding document. So our review criteria in our land development code basically says that properties shall show general conformance with the master plan. So there are instances where we will see land use applications that don't totally match the place type, or maybe the place type doesn't make sense for how the growth pattern has changed in the last few years since we've adopted the master plan. And those are instances where we might see an application come through that doesn't necessarily match the place type, but it's still a good fit for the community and it's still a good fit for the area. And that does not preclude that type of application from getting approved. But definitely, I would say the short answer would be absolutely, if you have concerns, definitely, bring those up. And we're always willing to listen, always willing to take into consideration and make changes if we need to.
We're going to hold future questions just to the end so that we can get through this presentation and still have time at the end. But we are trying to set aside time at the end for more questions.
Okay, I'm going to try to speed it up then but yeah, basically the general gist of this slide is what I had mentioned, that the whole idea of planning and the whole idea of zoning is that we're managing land uses of property in a way that tries to make sense and tries to prevent situations where you have incompatibilities or things going next to other things that don't really work, to protect everyone's private enjoyment of their property. So as Joe had mentioned, there is a pretty lengthy process for land use applications. This slide just outlines a few of those different processes. So a map amendment would be what we would call our rezone applications. It's an amendment to the zoning map when someone says, I want to change the zoning on my property. All of those types of applications are required to go before the Board of County Commissioners for considerations. That includes planned unit development zoning, which you all may have heard of. That's basically a customized zoning district where a developer or a property owner may want to do something that's not totally outlined in our zoning. Like maybe they want to do a residential type of product that the lot sizes don't really fit with any of our zoning categories, so we can allow them to do more of a custom product in the planned unit development zoning district. And that's a little more nuanced and much more complex than a conventional zoning application. We also have special use and variance of use type processes, which are zoning type applications because they permit a specific use on a property without warranting the change of zoning on that property. A special use is considered something that might be considered compatible if the applicant meets some extra restrictions and extra requirements. And a variance of use is essentially someone's asking for something that's not allowed in the zoning at all, and they want, basically they have to meet a specific set of criteria in order to justify why that's allowed. Subdivision processes are far more complicated than zoning processes and land use processes. Subdivision processes basically allow someone to parcel off their property. Again, I won't go into too many details on this because we could spend hours and hours just talking about this. But basically the big things that we look at for every single subdivision application, whether it's someone creating 100 lots or someone just splitting a lot in two, the big considerations are always water, soils and geology and geologic concerns, and traffic. So those are things that anytime you see a property, one of those big yellow posters, and you see these types of applications, sketch plan, preliminary plan, or a final plat, it's someone subdividing their property. And always the first thought, the first question I always get from citizens is, what about the water? Have you taken into consideration the traffic? How are we gonna be able to mitigate all of this growth that they're bringing in? And as Joe had indicated with that subdivision application he was reviewing, we are going through all of that in detail. The county actually expands on the state's 100-year water rule. So per the state of Colorado, subdivision applications are required to have sufficient water for 100 years to support the subdivision. El Paso County, being a drier county, expands that to 300 years. So for every single subdivision application, they have to justify how they have enough water to support all of the lots they're creating for the next 300 years, which I think it's really impressive that folks are able to do that. So I think I'll turn it back over to Joe.
So this is an overview of our application process. So basically starting from initial contact, if you own, say, a 20-acre parcel and you'd like to subdivide it and create two 10-acre lots, you'd call up the planning department. You'd speak to me as I'm the planner of the day today, and I would tell you basically the basics of what you need to do. That first step is an early assistance meeting. At that meeting, you'll get assigned a planner, engineer, stormwater engineer, possible other stakeholders. Fire district may be involved. We have a new staff member who's looking at reviews strictly for the fire code. The building department may attend. All these folks get together and we create a lengthy checklist of explaining the process, going over state statutes, going over county rules, going over expectations, and leaving you feel confident to actually then submit an application to the county that is of good quality and can get you through the process. Once it is submitted, we do send it out to various stakeholders. So Again, that would be the county attorney's office. They look at your water rights to ensure that each lot you're creating has a 300-year water sufficiency finding. We send to the health department. If you're on septic, you want to make sure that potential new lot buyers can put in a septic system, that there is available space. There's many outside agencies. CDOT may be involved. If it's a giant subdivision, you may have to then do improvements to, say, Highway 24, turn lanes, traffic signals. All of that is that feedback from the stakeholders goes back to you as the applicant. You have to make those changes and make those edits based upon comments of the referrals. We do send out public notice, so when we receive an application, even if that application never moves forward, if say there's too many challenges or they don't have the water, there is a public notice that is sent out by our department to all the surrounding adjacent property owners. So as you move through the process, once all the review comments are finally taken care of and resolved, you have your water finding, you have an actual letter from the county attorney's office, you have a letter from the state, everything is packaged up, put a big button on it. It would be public hearings. So that first public hearing would be the Planning Commission, which is an advisory board. They will vote to provide a recommendation of approval or denial to the actual elected officials, the Board of County Commissioners. About 2 weeks after your Planning Commission hearing, you then would present your application to the Board of County Commissioners, who would ultimately vote to approve or deny said application. At that point, if your neighbor is opposed to you creating those two lots on your property, they could come and they could speak why they believe it does not meet the approval criteria, or how it doesn't fit, or how they feel it doesn't meet the characteristics of the neighborhood. That's really that public input side of the review process. So say yes, you do finally get your approval and you want to start construction. Well, there's a whole process of that as well. So if you subdivide, you know, instead of making 2 lots, now you're creating 200. Well, there's a process of surety and ensuring that the county has bonds. So if you're a company, Joe's Awesome Developer Group, if I subdivide and make 200 residential lots, and then I said, uh-oh, my business went defunct, we need to have, the county needs to have surety and bonds to ensure that those roads and infrastructure is in place, even if that company pulls out and they don't fulfill their requirements for infrastructure. This next slide is regarding development review fees. The county does have a plethora of fees that are associated with development. You could see here kind of a breakdown of our fees. Part of the master plan, specifically goal 1.4, is to continue to ensure that development pays for itself. So this is where these fees come into place, that these are calculated based on the amount of time that staff reviews these projects, that they're not subsidized totally by the taxpayer. It's more of they pay fees to accommodate for educated staff, engineering, that all that coordination is done, is paid for by that developer. Next is the public planning process. So again, the public has a voice in planning processes. Most of our really major applications do go through public hearing, and at those public hearings, you're welcome to attend. You're welcome to speak how you feel about the application. You're also, of course, invited to apply to be on one of our many boards, such as Planning Commission, to partake in the actual process. So this is actually taken from our office, our hearing room that's on the second floor. So this is the Planning Commission. And again, there's that link on there if you're interested in volunteering. You can kind of watch that link and see when a position may open up as far as the planning volunteer boards. And then this next slide is dedicated to our planning services division. So they review many plans. But these plans are mostly on a smaller scale. So if you were to build a, say, detached garage, you hire a contractor to actually build this garage for you. Well, they submit for a building permit. With that building permit, they have to submit a site plan. That site plan is basically a bird's eye view of your property lines. It shows where the building is. It shows that it meets setbacks. And the planning services team will actually look at your plat. So say you didn't know there was a floodplain on your property, or you didn't know that there was a no build area because of shallow groundwater. The planning services division will look at your plat and they'll ensure that that building is in a safe placement on your property. So here's some general stats of the type of plans that we review. And the planning services division, they don't review every single building permit, but any type of actual construction that has to meet setbacks and zoning requirements, they take a look at. So this is our most exciting section of our presentation.
All right, 25 minutes, I got told I got 10 minutes, so I think we're a little over. We have 5 code enforcement officers for the county. We got one that goes up to Pass, one out east, one up north, one down south, and one that does mainly homeless and area called Midway. We are complaint-based, and we do a civil process instead of a criminal process. All right, so complaints received, officer investigates. They can send a courtesy notice. Then we make an executive determination if there is no action or no correction of the violation. And that's when we can start legal action through the county attorney or do abatement warrant. So that'd be for weeds and rubbish that we're going to do an abatement. And that land development code violations, they do court appearances. So homeless camps, like I said, we have one officer dedicated just to homeless camps. And we work with the city on cleaning up homeless camps that are within 1 mile radius of the city property line boundaries. And so here's some photos, homeless camp underneath a bridge in Stratmore Hills. I believe it's over by B Street, and Public Works is helping us clean up. Here's another homeless camp that you're gonna see cleaned up, and this is the after photo. So before and after. We do property abatement, so if you have rubbish on your property and you refuse to work with us and remove the rubbish, this is the before photo with the 4-wheelers, and then they had a pile of bicycles and other items, rotting trash. And there's the after photo after the warrant to clean the whole property. And again, you can see the bags of trash they have on their property. And after the photo, there was a car underneath the trash. So let's go back to this quick. I'll kill more time. But ordinances are from the state level, like Commissioner Geithner talked about, and we only can enforce the ordinances as they're written. So if someone, let's say, is A35 classified for grazing of animals, has big trash on their property, we can't force them to remove it because of the way the ordinance is written. It allows agricultural property that's classified as grazing, meadows, irrigated or unirrigated farmland to allow rubbish on the property. Growing up farming, I understand why farmers might have rubbish if it's tools or equipment, tires, but oftentimes out east, you're going to start seeing big trash, appliances, people are just dumping on their property. All right, we average about 1,250 cases a year. 138 cases are currently being worked. We have one property waiting to be cleaned up. We're doing a large cleanup on Wednesday down in the area called Midway. And we have about 34 cases in litigation, 70 homeless camps this year. And here's our contact information. Next one. All right. Any questions? Most of them don't. We have an officer who drives up the trails, and that's where he finds a lot of homeless. And then we have some property owners that are absentee or the homeless find areas to hide on their property, and then we will evict them. So most of the stuff that you see, the home property owner did not know about. And most of the time we inform them, they have people removed.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good presentation. I appreciate it. Can you speak really briefly about the Carmen Line encroachment on Peterson and the safety aspects there, especially the horizon to horizon need for safety?
Sure, I could speak on annexations. The county has a limited role in annexations, and essentially any annexation that's over 10 acres needs to be presented to the Board of County Commissioners, but it's presented as a non-action item. The board can't vote to prevent it or approve it or deny it. That's really up to the city, the annexing municipality, to make that decision, and that's a political decision that's done through their planning commission and then through their city council. Sure, and we do work closely with the Space Force and the Air Force bases to ensure that comments are addressed. For that specific one, I can't speak on that because that was a city project. But Ryan has worked on some other projects that are near the bases and working closely with our military partners to ensure that those hazards and issues are resolved early on. We do our best to be regional partners with them and to support them.
So just to add to that, something that I think is important to consider when we're talking about something like the Carmen Line project is if we don't have an application in the county, we don't really have any say on it. So for something like that, they will submit the annexation proposal to the county. As Joe said, we're basically obligated to consider it. We can make recommendations, but we can't tell them what to do because they're proposing to remove the property from our jurisdiction. Once the property's in the city, it's out of our hands and it goes to the city. Does that kind of answer a little bit more? It's just we're put in a really tough spot when we see something like that because we can't really do anything about it. Whether we think it's consistent with the master plan, whether we think it's consistent with our regulations, none of that really matters because they're not winding up in our jurisdiction.
The longevity of the safety of the military community.
So also, like Joe had said too, we've recently presented an application for a project called Flying Horse East that you all may or may not be aware of. That property is adjacent to Schriever Space Force Base. And I would say, I'm the planner at the county that processed that application. I would say that I personally am quite proud of the leaps that the county's made in the last few years with strengthening the relationships with the bases. I can tell you during the 8-9 month period when we were working on that project, at least once a week, at minimum once a week, I was in correspondence with folks from the base talking about the application. I facilitated meetings between the base and the developer to try to get them all on the same page. So that is something that anytime we have an application that comes even remotely close to a base, we're working closely with them. We're mandating that the developers work closely with them. The master plan also has a 2-mile buffer area around all of the bases that we are then required and obligated to ensure that that correspondence is happening. We take it a little bit further, and there are applications that are outside the 2-mile buffer that I will still send to the base because I share the same concerns, and I want to make sure that the county's having a good relationship, good working relationship with all of the bases.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to open it up the last few minutes of our evening. I'd like to open it up to any questions from any of the presenters. You guys were all amazing. You answered every question intuitively. Thank you very much.